Thank you for joining us for this, your daily 180 Bible study. We appreciate you being with us so much. This week, we're talking about the cure for worldliness. Today, we're specifically looking at James chapter 4, verse 10. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and He will lift you up. What does that mean, to humble yourself in the sight of the Lord? It has to do with humility, but it also has to do with the idea that we're going to humble ourselves before His holy word and do His will and only His will. You see, worldliness does just the opposite. Worldliness seeks worldly pleasure rather than the will of God. Now, Jesus set for us a wonderful example. Philippians chapter 2, verse number 5 says, have this attitude in you which was also in Christ Jesus, or have this mind. You see, we need a mind transplant. And one of the things that we see about Jesus was He was an incredibly humble individual. And we see this in His life. In John chapter 13, on the night before His crucifixion, they go to the upper room to partake of the Passover feast and to prepare for that. And they also, Jesus there institutes the memorial feast. And as they entered that upper room, there was no one there provided to wash feet. Now, this was a necessity. This was not some kind of ceremony that they went through. It was a necessity in that day and time, traveling on the dusty roads that they traveled with, the open type shoes that they would have. And there was no one there to do that. That was a job assigned to the lowest slave. That night, as they entered that upper room, 13 men went through the door, 12 masters and 1 servant. You say, no, they can't. Well, that was the attitude of those that went through. You see, there was only 1 servant that went through, and he was truly the master. And he demonstrated that by washing their feet. And then in John chapter 13, beginning at verse number 14, Jesus said, if I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. And then he goes on in verse 15 and says, for I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Now there he's not talking about some ceremony that we go through and wash one another's feet, unless that's what you need. What we need to do is be humble enough that we can serve others, humble enough that we can submit to God, humble enough that we do His will and only His will. Join us again tomorrow for your daily 180.